We're back, people, and today we're breaking down film on Tua Tagovailoa, looking at his full 2023 season. Gonna look at film, at least break down a few clips from every single game. We'll start with Week 1 versus the Chargers, and I just want to get some thoughts out there while some of these videos or clips play in the background, because there's a lot of thoughts about Tua and the Dolphins after their collapse versus the Chiefs, and definitely emotions running high. And I just want to, come in with a little more of a rational, nuanced take, because I feel like people are looking at things that are a little more black and white, simplistic takes, as it has been all season long, because there's the two sides that have always kind of gone back. After a good game for Tua, it's the people that were like, he could do no wrong, best QB in the league, he's elite, things like that. And that was never true. But then there's the other side that's like, when Tua does anything wrong, they become super negative, and it's and they look at his film and are like, well, he's terrible, he's trash. Well, they didn't even watch the film, to be honest. They just watch games live, and they think, he's just not good at all, which is also not true. He is a good NFL quarterback, in my opinion, from watching it from start to finish. Yes, there's things he needs to improve on. I think at times there's some narratives that are true about the team overall in Tua, but then there's some narratives that I think are super overblown. I think one thing that hurts Tua and gives him a bad rep with a lot of the media is just like the scheme and the team around him. They don't give him a lot of props for when he plays well, which I think hurts him. But like, if you watch the playoff games yesterday and look at the QBs that played well, a lot of them had a lot of help. Players running wide open, a lot of time in the pocket, and Tua had that at times too this season, and he played good in those games. And I think he's a very unique quarterback, because he has very clear strengths and very clear weaknesses, in my opinion. His weaknesses, obviously, everyone knows what they are, mostly physical limitations, the arm strength, which doesn't come into play on the deep passes like people think. He's actually a very good deep ball passer. It's more to do when you're not able to set your feet and you have to throw with basically all your arm, or make like awkward arm angles, those types of things. I want to see more of that. The off-script ability, which people think he has literally none. He doesn't have none. It's just like, if you watch this Chargers game, he looked amazing in that. And I think people need to have a little more perspective with certain things. I feel like some of the play calling changed as the season went on, and I know some people would think McDaniel did that because of Tua, but I don't think it is that way, because he clearly felt comfortable with what he was doing early on with Tua, and they were successful. I think it had more to do with the O-line injuries and that just defenses responding and playing them differently. And when they weren't able to run the ball effectively, it was hard for the offense to get going. So I think it's just more a nuanced perspective to look at those things. It's not just all Tua. And now what I would do personally, I definitely keep McDaniel. I think he has a lot to learn as well, but you definitely don't move on from him. And for Tua, I wouldn't sign him to a huge contract, but I do think you definitely have to stick with him at least for another year. I don't see how you upgrade there. You can definitely win with him. Look at the Lions. They won with Jared Goff. Tua is better than Goff, in my opinion. And they just won a playoff game, and Goff has like the best O-line in the league, top 5 running game. He's got receivers running wide open, and they run a similar scheme. It's just a lot of these things that I do think the Dolphins can win with Tua. They showed how they're capable of winning early on in the season. They need to step up against bigger teams. They also had some things go against them. People will call them excuses with the injuries and things like that. And, the Chiefs game, playing in -30, obviously tough. But they're also the reason that they were playing there, because they lost versus the Bills. So can't really use that either. But it is tough for you to really play in that weather. I'm not going to judge too much. But really start to dig into this breakdown. Look at the things he did really well this season, things he can improve upon, which he has improved. I don't think his ceiling's capped. I know some people think his ceiling is capped. I wouldn't say that. I think, he's shown improvement each and every season. And we'll get into some of this stuff like I know Kurt Warner's talked about. And if you watch the Kurt Warner video, there has been a lot of discussion, because he criticized Tua, and I think a lot of it was fair, for sure. But he also criticized some of the offensive play calling and the concepts. It made it tougher on Tua. I think that's a misconception with the team. I think it's like, oh, it's always super easy. No, there were some things, I think, later on that made it more and more difficult to run the offense, and there was a lot of things they could do to make things easier. It feels like they would either, as the season went on, was either just like screen, deep vertical ball, or those 15 to 20 yard plays over the middle of the field where you have to layer it, which Tua is very good at, but it's such a difficult play to throw over and over and over again. So just making things more simple for the offense, making the progressions make more sense, as we'll get to those plays as we get through these clips. So let's get right into this. Starting with this Chargers game, it was probably Tua's best game of the season. It was a huge game for him. He can definitely, I think, even though the Chargers weren't the best defense, and he did really respond. It was a huge game, especially with how they played the Chargers last season. This was coming into it, they looked really bad versus the Los Angeles Chargers, and he responded really, really well. Great play calling, and he just made plays off script all game. He made multiple big time off script plays. If this can become more consistent, and I do feel like he was protecting himself from injury later on, just also with I think chances weren't super high with the off script plays as it went on as well, because he was constantly getting the ball out super quick. So when you're getting the ball out that fast, there's not a lot of chances for off script plays, and it's like, just with how the offense is structured to get the ball to your first read a ton, it doesn't leave a lot of chances. So I think he can do it. It's just not something he is great at for sure. He's average at best at it, but it's kind of all you need. And there's other ways you can make up for it with like pocket movement. I think he has good pocket awareness overall. His movement in the pocket can be decent. I just think he became more and more uncomfortable as the season went on with his offensive line and those types of things. But like here, you can see him feel this pressure versus Bosa. He even gets face mask, fights through it, step up, dip that shoulder too, keep your eyes down the field, quick release, accurate to Berrios. It looked really, really good in this week 1 game. Playing that good weather definitely helps too, but there's definitely it's there. Like, he can do this type of stuff. It just this type of play needs to become a lot more consistent, and maybe it does with a little more help on the offensive line. Trying to show plays from each game that really highlight how he played in those games, because this breakdown is gonna be so long, unbelievably long, and the Chargers game was really good. So obviously this is gonna start pretty positive because he had a pretty strong start to the season, and then we're gonna see some negatives mixed in throughout games I think he really costed. And I also want to say the Dolphins, there's that narrative that they can't beat good teams, which I think is fair. They were 1-6 against good teams, but I also think the narrative kind of hurts Tua in an unfair way, because if you look at DVOA, the stats, he faced the top 6 toughest schedule pass defense wise, facing secondaries. So it wasn't like they had an easy schedule when it came to facing pass defenses. Yes, they had an easy schedule when it came to wins, but I do think it was a little tougher than people expect. Go back and look at this play. These are the types of things the Dolphins excelled with, and these windows become tighter and tighter. If you look at this game earlier on, there were some wide open plays, but they started to adjust, gain more depth. This is what teams did later on too, and just make these hard throws. But this anticipation, this is what he does better than anyone. He manipulates guys with his eyes. He makes these throws, and this is literally top tier stuff that I think people don't always recognize or notice, and this is why I just don't think you can move on from him at this time. And I think there's definitely fair criticism to have, and I think it's fair to have your concerns, and I think it's fair to say hey, if we can get a guy that's better, you do move on. I just don't think they're in a position to get someone better. I would not pay him a huge contract, but if you can get him in a reasonable deal, I think there's definitely opportunity to win with him and McDaniel. I think people, they see him as a 4th-year guy, but to me, it's really was his 2nd year. The first year, coming off the major hip surgery, not a lot of chances. 2nd year with Flores, constant rumors about them trying to replace him. He was basically in the worst situation possible. This was his first real full season. He played all 18 games that they played, which is really good for him. And I think that's the biggest thing. He just wanted to stay healthy, and hopefully he can get a little bit of that juice back, a little more and still be able to stay healthy as well. And that would be very, very important. I think another thing that goes a little bit unnoticed with his game is because they'll see he had that underthrow in the Chiefs game to Tyreek, but he actually very rarely underthrew the ball this year on deep verticals. He did a really good job on these passes. It was pretty hitting Tyreek Hill in stride. I mean, this plays a lot of Tyreek just winning a one-on-one matchup, Tua holding the safeties with his eyes and just getting the ball out there with timing. This is where people talk about arm strength. I don't maybe the arm strength on deep balls matters in a game when it's -30 versus Kansas City, but overall if the weather's fine or not too bad, because he's probably never going to play in a game like the Chiefs game again. That was one of the coldest games of all time. So I'm not too worried about that in the future. He showed he can play in cold weather when he played the Bills last year, but that was just a different kind of level. He's playing against Mahomes too, which doesn't help. But yeah, just he's a good deep ball passer. That's not where the arm strength / arm talent comes into question. If you look at the Packers games last night and you watch Jordan Love, I think there's some things. Tua definitely does better than Jordan Love, but Jordan Love, where you can see when things aren't perfect, he's able to just throw off his back foot, pure arm when there's pressure in his face, and that is sometimes where Tua can get into trouble with his accuracy and just pure arm talent, and that's something that is definitely a weakness of his. Off-script ability in this Chargers game was actually so good. It's insane. Nothing that was there initially. He's able to escape the pocket, keep his eyes downfield, and that's good arm talent. Be able to make this quick throw, super quick release, keep his eyes down the field with enough velocity and accuracy to hit Berrios, and that's a 3rd and 15 situation. These are like game-winning plays for this Chargers game. Like, he carried the team on his back, but I feel like this was like one of the only games this season where I feel like he carried the team. There's definitely other games where like he was a huge part of the team's success and team's wins, and I think that's like a little misconception with this team. I feel like for most of the season, he probably got a little too much credit for some of the wins, and not like a huge deal. Like, he was definitely a big part of the wins, but like he wasn't like the main reason for some of them. But then he also got a lot of negativity for the losses, which I don't think for most of the losses he was a big reason they were losing as well. So just a little, up and down on both sides, and I feel like people could look at it with a different perspective once they can see this whole video. Here is the play of the game for Tua, maybe the play of the year for Tua, the 3rd and 10, the climb up into the pocket, the throwing, off balance too. Like, this is exactly what you want to see. Arm talent, deliver a perfect ball down the field to Tyreek, feel this in the pocket, stepping up. I just feel like he felt super comfortable early on when he had his O-line healthy, or at least mostly healthy. Like, here he has 4 of the 5 guys. I feel like it was a combination of Tua feeling a little more uncomfortable, but also the play calling changing just with what they were doing, and the ball having to come out super quick, but then stepping up, making a great throw off of 1 foot. That's something that you need to see more out of him. It's there. We saw it week 1. There's some other examples littered throughout the season, but just a lot more uncommon. It was just like super common in the Chargers game. Just need to see this at a consistent level, because if he does that, that's where his game could take the next step. He's always going to have certain physical limitations with his arms, his legs. You don't need to be like a super athlete to make plays off script. You just have to have a good feel. Like, there's guys that were doing it, like Brady, terrible athlete, but like not great speed or anything, but he always had such good pocket awareness for him to like step up, make a guy miss, slide a little bit, give himself enough time to make those throws on the field. That's kind of what Tua needs to improve his game to take that next step. Now into the Patriots game, week 2. This was probably his best play of the game. I'm probably going to show 2 plays from here, because the Chargers game, he put the team on his back, best game of the season, had to show multiple plays from there. Going to show 1 positive, 1 negative game from this Patriots game, because it was a little more of a mixed bag, but I like what I saw for the most part, because it was a completely different game. Patriots play a lot of 3 high. New England does a good job against QBs, knowing how to stop offenses, so I got to give them credit as well. They're also getting paid to be out there. This was just a good job by Tua, getting to his next guy, keeping his eyes down the field, sliding in the pocket, giving him time, and then dropping an absolute dime. That was absolutely beautiful stuff. One of my favorite plays from Tua. But I also think, I'm not going to show a bunch of plays, but he did a good job in this game, completely different than the Chargers. He was pushing the ball down the field. I think that they did a good job planning for this and getting the ball out quick, just taking like 6, 7, 8-yard completions. And that's not something the Dolphins did a lot this season. I think they need to do more of. And I think it's also a McDaniel thing too, that he needs to give them more options. Not just either, making those tough throws down the field or screens. Give some more like pitch and catch, get rhythm going. And you'll see for the most part, Tua did that in this game. And then we'll get to the 1 play he didn't. And it's something that I think is a problem overall for the whole season. This interception, I think, showcases something that Tua can do from time to time. So throughout the game, it was a lot of quick passes, taking what was given to you, a lot of smart decisions from Tua, which I like, because sometimes he'll force that ball down there. They had a good running game going, which is important. I think that's something they need to focus on next year, because the Dolphins had statistically the best running game, but there was just times where it just would disappear, which I think could do to play calling. I think they need to be able to run the ball more physically down, a lot more inside zone, more gap scheme stuff, a lot of less tosses. That's what I'm more thinking of with the running game. But here they get to play action, try to set this up. They've had a lot of success with this year, but I feel like this is just one of those things where Tua predetermines that he's going to throw this ball down the field. They're playing cover 2. I think he's trying to hold this safety. He's looking down the middle of the field. He wants to get this guy. He gets him to open his hips, but he just predetermines that he's going to throw this ball deep, and he does it from time to time. It's not every time. Like, I know people will say he just throws to spots. He predetermines his throws. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't, as you'll see. And this is one of those cases where he predetermines he was going to throw that ball down there, and it turns into an interception. He can work on this and get better. You can see it's all within rhythm. Like, he's trying to, hold with his eyes, boom, he has that back foot, and then as soon as his head snaps the other way, he's throwing it. You could tell just from how he did that's where that ball was going to go. He should have just dumped it down to the running back. That's something he can get better at. He looked like he was doing that all game for New England, but then he had the one time he didn't, and it turned into like basically an arm punt. Only play I'm going to show from the Denver game. This was just a masterclass offensively. Probably the easiest game Tua is going to have in his career. He played pretty flawless, so nothing to take away from him. But this is like one of those games where everything around him was working perfectly. The running game, the blocking, people getting open. This was probably his best play where he had to come off his first read. And you just felt like, as the season went on, they just became like, this was, I think, the only time where their whole line was healthy as well. So he felt more comfortable within the pocket. And I think also from just structurally, things make more sense for him to get to his next progression. Doesn't like what he sees to the left side. Gain depth within the pocket, reset your eyes and feet, make a accurate throw into a tight window to Tyreek Hill. That's beautiful stuff. Just need to see that more consistently as the years go on. And I think he deserves some blame for that. I also think it was a McDaniel thing, and because of the injuries and less to do with Tua, because I just don't know why he would change. Because people think, they changed the offense to cater to Tua, which they did early on, but I feel like they changed it a little bit as the season went on just to make up for some of the offensive line injuries, which I think hurt them. The Bills game, the first one, the first loss of the season, the first one where they faced like a top team. Bills, they clearly always struggle with the Bills. This is another example of Tua getting to his second read, clearly feeling more comfortable within the pocket. Not a good game from Tua, not his worst game. Like, this is not one of those losses I feel like was solely on him. There was a lot more problems in this game than Tua. He didn't play great. Want to see him elevate too. But clearly the Bills came out with a good game plan. They played cover 2. We'll show about 2 plays from this, one positive. This one where he, lots of timing. Usually would make this throw in the pass, but it's not there. Reset your feet. You have time in the pocket. Get to your next guy. Still throw the ball with anticipation and timing to get to Tyreek. That type of stuff is really, really wonderful. They did it early on. It's there. They're capable of it. They just didn't do it late, and I don't have a complete understanding as of why because I'm not in the room. But to me, it looks like it was a combination of Tua feeling less comfortable within the pocket, a little regression there, but also conceptually, it didn't make as much sense, and things weren't as open later on in the season. And here's the pick. They're down like 14 at this point, and Tua tries to force. He does what, it's not even like a terrible decision to try to throw a seam bender versus cover 2, but it's Tampa 2. It's not there. He tries to force this ball. You can tell he predetermines because he just looks this off, and then as soon as he hits that back foot, it's already starting to throw before he looks back to the left. It's a predetermined throw. He does this sometimes, forces it in, and this is where his interceptions come from. Sometimes he gets big plays out of these types of stuff as well. I mean, the game was kind of, pretty much looking like it was going to be over at this point, but he just got to stop forcing this type of play, and it's something that's a negative of his. It can be worked on, and but teams, to be fair, played cover 2 at a super high rate against the Dolphins because they respected the Dolphins receivers. They respected the passing game, but that's like they couldn't run this type of stuff a lot if Tua had more mobility, but it's hard to find someone that's going to be able to, activate this offense with the timing and rhythm that Tua does, but that also has that mobility. There's not a lot of quarterbacks out there like that. This was probably Tua's worst game of the season in a win, this Giants game. I don't think he played well. This is like probably the only game where I thought like they won where I thought Tua was pretty bad. This was like his biggest positive. Just need to see more of this. Is where I'm like, yes, he can make some plays off script. He's not like a complete statue in the pocket. Like this guy loses instantly up the middle. He dips his shoulder. Good pocket feel and awareness. That's a good job avoiding as well. Keep your eyes down the field. Manipulate a linebacker with your eyes. Make a throw while off platform. Hit Tyreek Hill in stride. Just got to see more of that stuff. I think he doesn't have a ton of opportunities just because of the nature of the offense. But when you need to in these games, he's got to step up and make more plays like that. And then this play, he just forces it in. He just makes a horrible decision. Sometimes, every QB will have this where they just make like, what the heck was that? Tua doesn't do it a whole ton, but it's definitely something he can work on, like this decision versus the Giants. I think he's trying to move this guy with his eyes, thinks he's going to get wider than he actually is, tries to fit it into Waddle. It gets tipped off. It gets read by, he never sees the linebacker. It bounces off. It would have got picked anyways. Makes a horrible decision, gets tipped to the other safety, and then he runs it back for a touchdown. Not sure exactly what that choice was from Tua on that one. Just a huge brain fart. You move on. They still won this game, so it didn't end up mattering too much. But if you take it as, a full game, just looking at the quarterback, doesn't matter who wins or loses, just looking at the process of play, this one was not good from Tua. But yeah, they also came out with a pretty good game plan, because I got to give the Giants some good credit as well. I do think this game against the Panthers was one of Tua's best games of the season, and they had a slow first quarter, I think, coming out with 0, but they ended up putting up like 40. And I know people will try to say this is the Panthers, like the worst team in the league or one of the worst teams in the league. They actually did a pretty good job for most of the year, the Panthers, with their pass defense. So, got to give some credit to the Dolphins offense. They're still facing an NFL team that does a decent job in coverage. So, overall, you can see here the timing, the short out motion, the play action, hit your back foot. You have the clear out here from Chosen. You can see what happens when you have the effect, at least, of a running game. Because if you watch how linebackers play the Dolphins later on or throughout the season, they gain so much depth. Look, they usually, this is a 20-plus yard play to Tyreek Hill, and a linebacker should never be back here in most situations against most teams if you really watch it. But teams just started flying back, and linebackers would be right here to take away these throwing lanes. So these just windows would get tighter and tighter. I think the Dolphins need to have more options down here to pull these guys away, like where Durham Smythe is, but maybe more instead of, blocking initially, get out here towards the 10 this yard mark, so the linebackers have to respect it. And if they don't, you have an easier completion underneath. I think sometimes the offense could be a little too complex, but when those things work, they worked really well, because Tua is very efficient when those things are working within the timing of the offense. Not too much to break down here. Similar to the Chargers vertical shot, third down, another 40-yard play. Hold the safety with your eyes by looking him off, and then deliver a good ball within timing. Tyreek Hill gets open. When they got these 101 shots, they did a great job taking advantage of it for a majority of the season. These are, not super high percentage plays, but the Dolphins made those plays look high percentage. So just got to give credit to them in these situations, just showing them, not too much there to really, really break down. But it's a really good job with Tua's eyes, feet, timing it all, because he does that stuff really well. Another great play from Tua. This is when the Dolphins offense was working at its best, where they could use that play action, slow down the defensive pass rush, and look how this ends up working out. This is open up, he's opening up to the righty, get these guys to widen out. They pull a guy across. They even get a guy coming in late, but Tua, within the timing, anticipation, throw this back across, and that's just great accuracy. And it's also about these guys being on the same page. Sometimes there was misses were had, and it was on Tua, but sometimes there was misses that were had where wide receivers were not in the correct spot, and it's a tough ask for this offense. These guys have to be perfect, it feels like at times. And sometimes I actually think Tua had a pretty good game versus the Eagles. This game versus the Eagles that they lost, he played much better than he did against the Giants in the game they won. So I know there was times where they think people didn't step up. This was a tough ask. They had multiple offensive linemen out, and then I think Isaiah Wynn got hurt on the first drive, so they had Lester Cotton come in. They had no time. They get holding here. This is one of their touchdowns. They got called back. Good read here. Verse quarters, he gets the look that he wants. Number 2, he's just reading the leverage of the safety. Good anticipation to throw this. Good accuracy over the middle. But then he gets holding, taken away. Overall, just too many opportunities that other players kind of took away from him. And he got a lot of, as you'll see when we get to the interception, he got a lot of hate for this loss, just because whenever that's the nature of it, you lose, you're going to get, that negative interaction. I just don't think it was deserved as this much for this game. I feel like it really was only kind of deserved for the both Chiefs games and the final Bills game. Now, this is a big boy throw. This is 3rd and 18, and I feel like there was kind of a misconception that the Dolphins don't. I saw people saying, just because of the Chiefs game, I saw on Twitter, Twitter's a joke, but that they were saying Tua, the Dolphins, they don't push the ball down the field, they don't trust him. This is 3rd and 18. They were doing this a lot early on in the season, even with backup linemen, and I don't think they did in the Chiefs game because maybe they didn't trust him in the weather. That's fair, but this is not something that's a full season type of trust thing that I don't think they had. This is 3rd and 18. He rips a deep 29-yard comeback with pretty good timing, anticipation, accuracy to hit Cedric Wilson. Probably could have let him a little bit more, but good play by Ced. Get 2 feet in bounds. That's a big time throw. Is that something he's going to do a ton of? No, it's not his, big time strengths, but I just think, those weaknesses can get a little overinflated at times from certain people. Just got to show another deep ball from Tua to Tyreek. these vertical shots, they were so good at them pretty much all season. And this is just a great play from Tyreek and great ball placement from Tua. Not too much to really break down here again. Just going to be showing a few of these. Just got to highlight them. I feel like, a lot of this video has been positive. That's just because, a lot of this, I'm trying to go from start to finish. And we'll get to some more of the negative stuff and why I think that happened, why a lot of it's on Tua and a lot of it's fairly, a lot of the criticism is very fair, why some of it's a little unfair, because people are just calling him bad or trash. That's just not the case. Let's be honest here. Let's have an actual conversation. I'm not here to try to say he's a leader or anything. I just think he's a good NFL quarterback. You can win with him, but he does have his limitations. There's also that conception that Tua isn't clutch. I wouldn't say he's the most clutch quarterback in the NFL, but I also think it's an overinflated thing that he's terrible in those game-winning situations. He did it versus the Chargers, versus the Cowboys, and this Eagles ones where they say he threw the pick. The Bills one really bad. This Eagles one is not on him in my opinion. This one is on either the receivers running the wrong route or the concept, because in what world are they running a slant and go fade with a wheel route? These routes are way too close. Tua is throwing this up, expecting this just to be the fade here. The guy who gets the interception is this corner. He should never be in this position. Waddle should be breaking across the middle, pulling this guy, because this is man-to-man cover one. Should be thrown up to Mostert in this position, and it's either, incomplete pass interference or Mostert makes a great catch. That guy should never be there to make that play. So Tua never really even got the chance to try to tie this game, because this one, in my opinion, is on the receivers. I don't think Waddle is supposed to be in this area of the field. This was a weird game from Tua against the Patriots. I never expect two crazy games against New England. They do a good job of winning because they're just the better team. But they do a good job slowing down the Dolphins offense. They play these three safety looks. It's hard to throw against that. You got to be able to run. This is 3rd and 15, and he just makes a poor decision. I don't know if he just never saw him. I also think the tight end kind of did a poor job. But this is also just a horrible decision by Tua. This stuff happens. These aren't the types of picks he throws a ton of, where it's just what are you thinking? But yeah, that one was just a terrible job. I think overall the game was weird. He threw for over 300 yards against the Patriots, which not a lot of quarterbacks have done. But it was a weird game with a couple bad decisions, a couple big plays, as we'll see, and we'll get to the next one. Only other play I'm going to show from this second Patriots game is the next deep ball, the play action, set this up. You get the quarters look. Tyreek flies by people, and he delivers another good ball down the field. They did this a lot this season, especially in that first 3 quarters to it. It just wish they could have kept this up with a little more consistency. But when the stuff starts to go away, you should have been able to run the ball more effectively. But yeah, just that stuff was really phenomenal all season long. You got to give Tua and Tyreek credit for this. I think this first game against the Chiefs from Tua was one of his worst games of the season. Not as bad as the second one. I mean, probably the weather played a factor in that. But I think he just made some poor decisions, predetermined stuff. I feel like he could have gone through his progressions a little bit better. I do think Tyreek and McDaniel were also at big fault in this game, but Tua definitely deserves a lot of blame. I feel like, this was one of you saw one of the Kurt Warner videos. He talks about it just feels like a predetermined read. He's already decided he was going to go to Cedric Hill back pre-snap, but if he just goes through his normal progression like he usually would, he would probably throw this to Tyreek. This is the type of throw he would make to Tyreek all the time as his first option here, just reading these guys, but he just comes off of it before they even break. He tries to throw up the fade to Cedric. It's never even open or really has a chance. These are the types of things where you just need to go through this. And hey, maybe that's the offense. Maybe that's what he was told. McDaniel said, go there. It is 2nd and 17, but this is the ball where this has to be ripped out to Tyreek with the timing of it. These are the throws they make all the time. And even if he didn't like that, he could probably come down to Julian Hill after as well, just reading this defender. Another big play where he just misses Tyreek. It's 2nd and 20. I mean, Tyreek probably could have made the catch, but he just usually doesn't miss these types of throws. He's very accurate. It is tough to make these throws constantly down the field where you have to layer it over the second level, but keep it in front of the safeties and put it with perfect timing, and you're throwing with anticipation. It is tough, but he just misses that. And I'm not even going to show the final drive because I broke down the final drive recently in another video. But if you've seen that, that's another area where Tua kind of struggled. And I don't want this video to be super long, and I literally just did it. But, he was a little off page with the receivers on some. He made some poor decisions, and then he dropped that snap too, which, wasn't a great snap. But yeah, just overall, pretty uncomfortable game. Not his worst game of the season, but definitely at least a below average performance from him. I do think this performance versus the Raiders was Also, not a good game from Tua. It was weird. He didn't even he just put up too many turnover worthy plays, whether there was interceptions or dropped interceptions, making some poor decisions. I just feel like with this angle, like the Raiders are running cover 3 here, and I feel like he's expecting Waddle to try to get over the top of this guy, but Waddle breaks across his face, so he's just not on the same page. And this just turns into basically another deep arm punt, but it's a 1st and 10, so you can't have that happening. And to me, it's just another situation where he just kind of makes a poor decision. I get him not trying to throw it down to Tyreek. His checkdowns are, he could throw it to them, but the guys are there to make a play. And I don't mind him throwing this to Waddle, but he just doesn't put it in the correct spot. He just reads it wrong, in my opinion. Doesn't read it like Waddle does, and then it turns into an interception. But yeah, overall, looking at the Raiders game, wasn't his greatest performance of the season. First Jets game. Tough secondary, to be fair. Terrible team. So, most quarterbacks typically struggle against the Jets this season, so Tua didn't do a terrible job, especially in the second game. He actually played pretty well against the Jets. The second game we'll get to there, but his first game, he threw the ball well vertically. He hit some of these slot fades, which were very important, showing that another good read. Sees that it's cover 1. He gets the exact look that he wants, delivers it with good timing, good accuracy. He did a good job on a lot of these throws throughout the season. But yeah, he had a really, really bad play in this game. This is just one of these throws you can't make. The interception feels like he's trying to read this guy. I'm not sure why. Usually he would throw this to Tyreek. I think, maybe he sees the leverage of the safeties, but usually that's a throw he tries to make there, and he's just late throwing this to the out there and just gets pick 6. It's a poor decision. Can't make this. It's a poor throw as well. It's late. It's behind him. It has no chance to be completed. Not sure why he ended up throwing that. Unfortunately, it didn't, cost them this game, but that's the type of things you can't be having from your quarterback. Does that play make you bad? No, because, every quarterback has had those at some point. He's not throwing those consistently enough for him to be bad, but it's definitely something where he will have from time to time, and it's definitely something he can work on in these situations, but the Jets are also a very good secondary. This is a good scenario. Usually on these split field safety look, you're going to have that backside dig because this linebacker, his hips are opening there. So just good understanding, coming off that first read, reset, find Waddle across the middle. That is beautiful stuff. That's the stuff you just want to see more consistently from Tua, because this is the stuff I believe he can grow at and become even better, because I think he has enough pocket awareness there. Just need to see a little more mobility, which I think he can do. Just a little better feel at times, because sometimes his feel is great in games. Sometimes it's just average or a little below average. I wouldn't say it's terrible, but there's sometimes it's not there. Then the Tennessee game, probably the biggest loss this season, because this one they should have won. They're the better team. They played horribly. Really, the defense didn't play horribly the whole game, but they were kind of the reason they lost at the end. And then the offense just was inconsistent the whole game. I think they got out schemed. I didn't know what plays to show. I went through the whole game and tried to pinpoint where the problem went wrong. What plays, Tua had some big time throws, some big plays. Tyreek was injured and Waddle was injured for some of this game. It just feels like there wasn't anything really major. There was some play calling issues. It feels like they should have ran the ball more. Tennessee ran this weird Tampa 2 invert that got them confused at times. Feels like just based on coverage, Tua got locked in, and I feel like this play shows that he was feeling uncomfortable within this pocket, tries to step up, doesn't keep his eyes on the field, trips over his offensive lineman, and then gets sacked. It's the final play of the game that loses it for them. Feels like he could have stepped up, been a little more clutch here. It feels, things around him could have been better, but this is a type of situation where you could see some of his weaknesses on display in these games. But just like this type of situation, got to come off that read. See that it's not there. When you come to this middle of the field, you see this guy opening up his hips. We'll go back to the wider view. You just got to be able to process this stuff a little bit better. You see you don't like this look, this side of the field, this concept, that's thrown off. You see 37 in the middle. Now try to rip this back to the seam to Braxton. It's really your only option. It's a tough throw to make, especially when you're feeling a little bit of pressure, but I think he had enough time to do that, and it didn't happen in this situation. With Chosen working across to get this guy to come down here, so just gets this one-on-one matchup with DJ Reed out there, and it's just perfect play call at the time as well. And it's the only play I'm going to really show in this game because it's the only thing really needed. There was a lot of quick game. It just felt like, things were working for them. And you got to give them credit at least for bouncing back after that terrible terrible performance versus Tennessee. In the Cowboys game, their only win all season versus like the winning teams, the winning record teams. This was a big one for the Dolphins. Tua had some big throws early on. I'm not going to show like the ones to Waddle, the big balls. I'm showing this before the game-winning drives because Tua did, had a clutch game-winning drive. It was good play calling. It was leading them there. It shows, they're capable of it. I don't think it's like a thing that they just can't do. They're not able to do. It just needs to become more consistent. I do think Tua was a little off in this game with his accuracy, especially on some like outbreakers, which is not typical of him, especially in like decent weather games. I know he hurt his thumb in the first quarter. Maybe that had something to do with it. But yeah, this is something where Tua was slightly off at this time. I'm not sure if the injury had anything to do with it, but definitely somewhere I'm not super concerned with the accuracy wise, especially because he's usually not that way. But yeah, it was a little weird at times in this game. Then the game-winning drive, just a lot of good, quick decisions. I feel like this was a game I loved what Mike did. It was a lot of get that ball, hit your back foot, and throw a quick slant. Not, a glance, bang 8 post that's 20 yards down the field. You saw it in the 2-minute drill they had versus Dallas. They did it in this 2-minute drill at the end of the game. Just take what was given to you. They have a backup corner in, playing this much depth. Boom, just throw this quick hitch, curl to Tyreek. Take what's given to you, Then, they try to do this stuff. Him and Tyreek aren't on the same page, is what it is. But they lead this game-winning drive down the field, running the seam rail slide RPO. Nice to see all this stuff working out. Tua making quick, smart decisions. The play calling, get exactly what they want. He sees and recognizes that play pre-snap. We saw it on the film, and then you get that screen. It just sets up that game-winning drive. Really, really good stuff that they are capable of doing this. There was just a lot of, outside factors at time that played into some of those losses too. I think it's overall, I think it's something they can overcome. Just from watching all these games back to back to back to back to back, you start to realize there was a lot of positive that came throughout this season. And, we're about to start getting into after this game, it wasn't too pretty. But yeah, there was still plenty of things I think you can take from this. You definitely don't move on from McDaniel. And I think Tua has definitely showed enough. He's improved. He's a good quarterback. Pretty dang good, in my opinion. It's just he's not elite, and there is some clear weaknesses that he probably won't overcome. There's some weaknesses he can overcome, but it does hurt you from time to time if things aren't always going well. The Ravens game started pretty well for Tua. They couldn't stop Lamar at all, but the offense needs to step up more in these situations overall. I definitely agree. There's things they could do better, and I feel like later on in the season, it was too reliant on the defense with how much offensive power they have. I know the O-line was hurt. I know Tyreek, Waddle, Mostert, Achane, none of them were fully 100%, but we gotta just be better next year, and I think it's a combination of things, and we'll get to some plays here with the interceptions. Here's the first interception. Tua just does an extra hitch. He's usually good with his timing anticipation. This is what happens when you are always throwing within timing anticipation in these routes, and the linebacker's reading your eyes. He's getting all the way over here, and you just do that little extra hitch. Once he does that, he's got to come off and look to the other side of the field, get to another read, get through his progression. But when you have to do this, you have to hit these tight windows all the time, and you're slightly off with your defensive play of the game. Here's the second interception, another area where Tua tries to force the ball, the play action, roll out to the right. And this is the stuff where these windows start to close. Look how much depth is gained here. These guys barely get out of the backfield. Like, Ingled's on the ground. The tight end's running like a 2-yard route. This Achane's down in the backfield. You could check it down to Achane here. I wouldn't mind that. But this guy's probably in a position when you throw it to make this tackle. Achane could make him miss. And Tua has to force it. Look how much depth these linebackers are gaining. I feel like the offense could adjust conceptually to really pull these linebackers down, actually give them something to threaten them in this part of the field, because they gain all this depth, and now Tua has to throw it a little high. It gets tipped. Tyreek doesn't go up and give the best effort. It gets then goes into the safety's hands. I also don't know what Chosen's doing. I feel like these routes are too close. This should never be thrown from Tua, but also I don't like the absolute design of it. As the season went on, defenses adjusted and made it a lot more difficult. I feel like that is something people aren't realizing either. And trust me, I love Mike McDaniel, and I think he's great and has a great chance to succeed in this league. It was really their first playoff, like last year's playoffs. They had the backup quarterback, wasn't expecting too much, and they almost won. In a better environment, the team around them was healthier. But this year, a lot of injuries as well, but they have your quarterback and then you get negative 30 degrees. Also unfortunate, but you're the reason that you're playing on the road there too. So you got to realize that. It's just a lot of different things. I think little things they can fix that can easily lead to a playoff win. Then we get to the Bills game. I think this was the second Bills game, the one that pretty much cost them their playoff chance. Wasn't really expecting them to beat Baltimore. This one, they had a good chance. They also got a little unlucky, with some of the punt return stuff. But the offense could have played way better. I think this was not Tyreek's best game. Definitely not Tua's best game. Definitely not McDaniel's best called game, especially in the second half. They just disappeared when the moments mattered. I think, coming up to this game, Tua had some inconsistent plays throughout, but really that final interception was just one of his worst plays of the season. This one, he's able to step up in the pocket, feel the pressure, try to throw this down the field, but look how much depth these linebackers have gained. You just got to realize you can't throw this. I mean, it's there potentially, but you have to make an absolutely perfect throw. Ball goes a little high. Tyreek probably still could have caught it, but Tua is always trying to make these tough, difficult throws. Sometimes just check it down. You have Achane here. He did check it down throughout the season on multiple different times, but sometimes he tried to force it a little too much, forcing the issue, taking the check down. I thought he was better at it earlier on in the season, but as the season progressed, I think he regressed a little bit in that area. So just somewhere he can improve. It's an area you can get better at, but yeah, something to notice at that I think he didn't do a good job of, enough of, especially throughout later on in the season. And then here's the game-losing interception. 2nd and 10 situation. Bills are in cover 2-man. It's the hardest coverage to throw this against. Tua not even feeling that much pressure. I feel like if he was feeling pressure and made this throw, I would understand it a little bit better. Claypool, yes, he runs a terrible route. If he runs it the right route, maybe it doesn't get intercepted. But you can't be throwing this. There's still 2 guys over here. It's Claypool. That is a terrible decision, and that helps you end up to lose that game, and it's very important. But I do feel like this was like the first time this season where I felt like Tua was one of the main reasons you lost. Maybe other than that Chiefs game. But this was like the reason, like, Tua lost us this game. The game-losing drive against the Chiefs, there was a combination of things, the bad snap, him and Cedric not being on the same page. Things are understandable. This one is just like, you make a horrible decision, live to play another down. You don't have any help on the field. Like, obviously, Waddle's not on the field. Tyreek just came off. It's just so many different things that allow this offense not to thrive, and it's not all Tua's fault to blame, but this is something you just can't do, and it definitely was a big negative. Overall, Tua, mostly positive season for Tua, and people will just look at this as, the end-all, be-all. It's not. You can bounce back from this. You can improve. You can, not make that decision again. Bad decisions happen. How do they move on and bounce back from it? Because this is the play that really lost in the playoffs, because, them going into negative 30, did they ever really have a chance? Probably not. Now we finally reached the Chiefs game. This video has been too damn long. Clearly, the cold was affecting, or the weather overall was affecting some of Tua's accuracy. And I don't want to excuse it, but I also don't want to judge too hard, because I feel like I can't even imagine what that weather felt like. So, this is definitely, this is one of the times where he missed. Most of his misses were on these quick passes that he usually would never miss. Just a quick swing, him and Achane. I do feel like Achane maybe is a little wider than he expected, but you just can't miss this. Throws it low. They actually got the look they wanted. I mean, shout out to the Chiefs. They out-schemed them for sure. McDaniel did not call a great game. They were not prepared. Weather wasn't great either. They didn't even really allow Tua to throw the ball down the field until it was over. And Tua, probably looked his best late in the game when he got to throw the ball down the field, but at that point, the game is over. But just can't have these misses. They came a little too often in these games. This is where you could take advantage and get a first down, and then you get, the pick after this. That play was 2nd and inches. Then on the next play, this is the 3rd down, but then they had another illegal formation. Too many penalties, too. A lot of pre-snap penalties ruined drives in this game. Not all Tua's fault. Most of it wasn't. The penalties weren't Tua's fault, but there was a lot of fault to go around in this game. Here is the play. I've seen this, rotating around on Twitter, the interception, the 2-man, the disguise. Tua actually probably his best read of the game. He recognizes that this becomes 2-high coverage, that this is taken away with the low leverage of this corner. He comes off of it, goes through his progressions here. Don't really love the design. If you watch the Kurt Warner video, you will understand that just based on this guy is where he's at right here, this depth of it, he should keep going across because it kind of makes Tua, also with the pressure in his face, kind of float the ball more than he wanted to just because feels like he has to get it over this guy and the guys in his face. But this is another area where Tua's physical limitations affect him because he has to throw it off his back foot and the ball just floats on him. You got to be more accurate here. It's not like he can't make this throw. Like he ends up overthrowing him. It's not the arm strength itself. You just got to be able to be a little more accurate. Maybe it's the cold, the weather. I don't know personally, but this is the play where like you make the right read, you get that decision going, and then you have Waddle open. It's not like perfectly, like there's nowhere else to really go. Like I don't love this design. Like really, it's Tyreek not there, taken away. You go here. This is obviously not in a good spot, but that's not a chance. This isn't an option. It's a 2-on-2. You're not trying to throw the swing pass. Really, Waddle is the only place that he can go to the ball in this situation. He does feel some pressure up front. It's not all on Tua, but that is not a good play from Tua. He was indecisive for most of this game. You can see some of the, look at the Kurt Warner stuff on Twitter if you really want to see the rest of this game. This video is going on way too long, but there was a lot of positive to take away from the season, but the negative at the end is all people talk about because of, recency bias is a hell of a drug. And I think people are, it's definitely fair to criticize this play. It's definitely fair to have concerns about the future, but I think the people that are just calling him terrible, it's not the case. This stuff happens. He had an overall pretty good season. Just can they improve, get better? I think they got one more shot at this for sure. I don't see them making changes. If they do, I don't know who they would go for. I'd be pretty surprised, I'd be pretty shocked if it happened. And I do think they have an opportunity to go even farther. This offseason's very important because they have a lot of free agents. I'm going to be doing a lot of draft stuff. So if you guys, I don't know if anyone's still watching the video at this point in time, but I'm going to be doing a lot of draft stuff, a lot of free agent stuff in this offseason. I'll probably try to do a video on every one season for the Dolphins, like a lot of the important players that are sticking around, people that I think they should re-sign, all of that, mumbo jumbo. But yeah, overall, what was a very promising season ended, very, very sadly. And that happens. It's a lot of good teams in the NFL. They're making it to the playoffs. People will say that's, not impressive, but if you get there, you always have a chance to win. They also had some outside factors that played, the injuries. Playing in -30, it is what it is. And now, could they do better? I don't think you move on from them. I think they get another shot. This was like the first season where Tua was fully healthy, and in the second season within McDaniel's system, there was a lot of good stuff to take away. I don't think you just completely move on from that. If they did find a better quarterback, yeah, you upgrade. I just don't think they're in that position. So if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.